Welcome back to another brand new episode of the Rocker Dog Podcast, the show that talks to musicians about their bestest boys and goodest girls. I'm your host, Tim Dill, along with my fried chicken-colored golden doodle, Charlie, and today we welcome to the show Chris Colbourn of Buffalo Tom, a rare band that has endured for over 30 years with all its original members. They have a new album called Jump Rope out on May 31st, and this is his wise and practical Rocker Dog.
Well, we could talk about a lot of dogs, but my main dog is Cora now. But I grew up with some, a lot of dogs, all very similar, actually.
Similar in breed?
Yeah, similar in breed. Actually, I should have had that picture ready. I have a picture of my first dog that I got when I was 4, Snoopy Colbourn, which I named, Snoopy, creatively. And then, then I only had one other one as a kid, which was a Cocker Spaniel mix. And then I had another golden named Abby, and then Cora was born 10 years ago.
Okay, and Cora is a golden retriever, or you said it's a golden mix.
Yeah, actually, I only met her. You'll see her in a second because she comes over when I talk to people. We met her mother and grandmother because they were both having puppies, and they were chocolate labs and a black lab. Oh. So we never saw the dad. But Cora, as you'll see in a minute, looks like a golden retriever.
Okay. I was going to say it's interesting because, when you have a podcast such as mine,
Cora.
You tend to rely on social media for research because you're not going to find, tidbits on your Wikipedia page or your band page. And I went to your Instagram, and luckily it was 75% Cora. But unfortunately, it's only 4 posts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't post a lot on Instagram. That's right. But probably you see that, Cora?
But on the band page, there was a great picture of Cora. The comment said, Chris has always been a dog lover. He even wrote a song about a giant golden retriever he grew up with. Is that a song? Is that a song in the Buffalo Tom catalog, or is that a song?
Exactly. Yeah, that is a song called, it's a B-side. So we have a B-side CD on Beggar's Banquet. It's called Butterscotch, which was recorded for the Big Red Letter Day album, and the drums never worked, but we recorded it acoustically. Butterscotch. Yeah, I'm forgetting Butterscotch's last name, but Butterscotch lived in our town, and it was giant. I mean, it was like a St. Bernard golden retriever sized, which was notable, and used to kind of walk to my friend's bus stop, and was so big and intimidating. It would just sometimes get someone's brown paper bag lunch, and they let it take lunch. Butterscotch. And I know Butterscotch's sister. I mean, this was in the 70s. So, wow. We're still in touch. They're from this little town that Bill and I grew up in called Medfield.
That's great.
Which was nice. Funny. I lived in a reservation area, and we had dogs, and they ran, and the horses next door. So we grew up in the suburbs, but I live in Cambridge now, in the city, which is a little different. I have a big yard, but it's different for dogs.
So as a child, you really don't remember a time without having a dog?
Oh, yeah, definitely not. I remember the day I got Snoopy as a 4-year-old. It was just coincidentally my birthday. I'm youngest of 5, so everyone was disappointed, of course. I got to name the dog Snoopy, and they were like, no. But it was a great dog, and sadly chased cars, which was its demise in front of me as a kid.
Oh my
as
gosh.
An 8-year-old, so it only lasted till 4. But my parents grew up in Baltimore, in the inner city, South Baltimore. They had a cat, like that was an outdoor cat. They didn't know what to do with dogs. And our dog was a crazy, it was the time before we didn't get it neutered. We didn't have a fenced in yard. The dog just ran around the neighborhood. All dogs did. They were all related. There were dog gangs, So, but Snoopy, of course, I'm 4, so I've really bonded with that dog. And I've always had, basically always had one.
How traumatic was that experience with
It was crazy. In fact, there is a song called Snoopy on in our very first songs we ever wrote. We wrote an instrumental called Green. I wrote a song called Snoopy, which was about the trauma of Snoopy, and some early songs that were ended up on our first album. So that's kind of a dog person I am. But it was insane. I was 8 years old, and it was really dramatic too. He got run over, and he didn't die, and he lasted overnight. And then the vet called us in the morning. But he was a rascal, and he hated when men rode by on their bikes, and he would bite them. Like, he was a biting dog against that one single thing, which would happen. And people would come up screaming at us and say, "Your dog bit me." But it brought back my memories because he was a naughty kind of dog, which is great as a 4-year-old to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it match your personality?
It's a good question. No, I think that, and this includes my mom. So I'm 4, right? And when I'm growing up, I'm old enough. I'm the last of 5. So my mom was starting to be like, "Wow, this is a lot. Like, go play with the dog outside for hours." That's what happened in those days.
Yeah.
8 o'clock in the morning, like, "I'll see you at dinner time," kind of thing. So we had a lot of fun. But I remember the dog being sort of like, "Okay, this is a lot. This guy constantly plays. This guy is constantly throwing balls. Like, I want to just go sit down." He had a funny thing though. So we lived again on a forest, right? So this is Lewiston, New York, the suburbs of Niagara Falls and Buffalo. And again, my mom would just say, "Go back in the woods and play." So he was the hunter, and he got any animal. You know how there are dogs that do that? None of my past dogs get the squirrel or get the animal. He got every animal. He was that guy. And so he brought home squirrels, a porcupine once.
Oh my gosh.
Rabbits, of course, all these kinds of things. So my mom said, "Enough. We've had enough of this. No more." The typical no more thing, then a rolled up paper. Like, no, like, because he'd bring the mangled animal right to my mom's feet, right in the house. Really gruesome. So she said to him one time, I don't think my dad was involved. It was her saying, like, "No more, like, no, Snoopy." And then, a year goes by. This is in Buffalo, to cold, snowy place. This is in the fall, say. So the next spring, no more animals came in the house. It obeyed. We were like, "Hey," like, "Okay, great." Then the next spring, my job was to mow the lawn. The first time I mowed the lawn, right around this time of the year, I went around to the side of the house, and there was just this like giant army coat, big gray army coat. That's all I could think. Like, wow, what's this? What a weird thing. I found a giant gray army coat, and it was just mound of animal carcasses.
Oh my God.
He just left them on the side of the house.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It must have been 30 squirrels.
That's funny. Was your mom the responsible one that fed him?
Yeah, to some degree, probably being that young. I had a sister who was, let's say, 8 years older. They were dog sitting, and that's how we got the puppy. Because again, the dogs would constantly be have litters. It was very different than now, right? So my sister, I think, came home and said, "Oh, we have a puppy," and so she probably did some of the serious stuff. That's her in the picture. But it got into a lot of trouble. It would run off. Oh, so it wasn't being not neutered. It would not come home some nights, much perplexing to me. Where's, the dog? And the neighbor would say, "Your dog is outside this house, around the block." And sure enough, I go like, "Snoopy, what's happening here? Where are you? You didn't come home." And he would just sit outside. The dog is in heat inside the house. And he'd just wait for days. He would just sit outside.
That's so funny. It's like, "Get lost, kid. I'm busy."
Yeah, right. I can't explain this, but
when you're a little older.
Yeah, that's right. That was funny. That was like probably, half of my childhood was just playing with the dog.
When was it that you took on responsibility to have a dog on your own? Were you in college? Was it
Yeah, no,
post-college?
it was after college. In fact, I have a grand dog now, Reggie, and who my son just got as a junior in college, which I thought was a big mistake. He's in New York City. It's the greatest dog, though. It's the amazing dog that he adopted, from a shelter. And I was like, don't do it. You don't know, it's way too much. It's too much a bigger responsibility. But it's actually really helped him. He's sort of anxious, like a lot of kids. He's really taken to it. It's an amazing dog. So I've always had hounds, these golden kind of mixes. So this is, I'll try to show you a picture. I got a lot of Reggie pictures. This dog is like a black cur mix that is kind of like what I would see in the wild in Italy or something, feral dog. So my dog, Cora, though, is older. It's 10 years old and has, this is a puppy, really corrects it constantly, which they say is a good thing. But of course, they're like, yeah, hot and cold water. So my dog, Cora, corrects him all the time, growls at him, bites towards him. But it doesn't ever connect or anything, but it's still pretty loud noise. But then I noticed, because I've had them for weeks at a time, that when I put them on the leash together to walk, then they're friends. There's nothing happens.
Right.
No kind of, so whatever that is, then they're cool with each other walking around. The minute they come back home, I guess in Cora's territory, I unleash them. Reggie goes to the food bowl or something. Oh man, it gets nasty. But then when they get tired, they sleep together. So it's going pretty well.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was going to ask you about, your kids. Have your kids carried on that love of dogs that you had?
Yeah, my son, yes. My daughter, who's 18, no. She cares. She picked out Cora, and that was the idea when so she was 8 years old then. She picked out the puppy, and I thought this is a great time for the kids to get a new dog, because we had the old dog when they were tiny. It was an 11-year-old, 12-year-old golden. And that was like, it slept all the time. But then she never took to him. But my son really did. And him getting the dog against my orders is funny. And I can tell he's got the same, whatever that is, the genetic thing, it makes you feel comfortable. It relaxes him. It's a great feeling. You don't think of it as work at all. But he's hilarious because he got it sort of really by surprise. He was just sitting, when they give them to somebody, they want people to take them home for a week. And I said, oh, no, don't do that because you're going to want to keep him, which he did. But then he had him a few months and he's like, he goes to the vet, and I'm like, oh, okay, how'd it go? He's walking home literally and he's going like, I have the bill here. This can't be right. And I'm like, why? Like, what are we talking about? And he's like, well, it's a lot of money. I'm like, what did you think it would be? $10. Yeah. These vet bills these days are like $500, for shots. And he said the flea and tick medicine, and he has no money,
Yeah.
I'm like, so wow. So he's like, yeah. He's like, so, you need to pay this pretty soon. Hilarious.
How about your wife? Is she on board with
ex-wife? And she is not a dog person and won't let the dogs in her house. We're very close, and she has a very nice house. But the kids live here. But even when we go over there for a dinner or something, no dogs allowed.
Okay, interesting.
Which is hilarious. Yeah, I will say my house is full of dog fur. Yeah.
And rightly so. Rightly so.
Yeah. So funny.
It's funny, going back to the post that's on the Buffalo Tom Instagram. A commenter said, Chris took a real interest in my dog Lucy and fed her an apple after the show at Bogart's, which I think was in Ohio.
Oh, Bogart's. Wow, that's a long time ago. Yeah, I don't remember that. We've toured with people. We once went on a tour in Australia with a band called Fur, and they had a dog with them, which I was pretty jealous of. I mean, it was in Australia, so we couldn't have brought our dogs, but I thought that's so great. It makes everybody calmer. They're this great. Touring especially is exhausting, and it can be anxious. This weird mixture of boredom and anxiety constantly. And the dogs are so great on the road. They really bring things down. I always thought it would be pretty great. And my friends do bring their dogs sometimes. The only downside for us is that we're so loud. It's loud.
Yeah.
And I think about that the dog shouldn't be too close.
Yeah, that's a common question of mine when I do see clues that, a dog does go on tour with an artist or have been to a couple of gigs. They do say the same thing. It's so nice to hear it repeated. That's just like it brings
Yeah,
anxiety down. It's a welcome sight to them and the people around
comfort.
them and the crew.
Yeah,
But they do say, yeah, more times than not, the dog will stay on the bus, or they'll have,
yeah,
a handler kind of just walk them or
yeah.
get them out of the
Has to
scene.
be the right kind of a dog, right? Kristen Hirsch used to tour with her little dog, and it came on stage when she performed, which was cute. You know who's a big dog guy? It's Jay Mascis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is well, he used to have these big bulldogs. I don't know what he has now, but he was always crazy. They put it in some of the artwork, but Jay's always asking me about my dog. I think he's met him in Provincetown. We vacation in the summer and often see each other in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which is a big dog city, by the way. Super dog friendly. You can bring them almost anywhere and everywhere. And as is New York City, by the way, which is a big perk for my son. He brings them in restaurants and bookstores and ice cream. So Cambridge, by the way, no dog outside. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't bring them almost anywhere. I love in England that you could bring them in a pub.
Yeah, that's great. I'm down south, and we've got a
Yeah, I was
lot of
going to
open
ask.
air breweries, and it's just
Yeah,
like bring your dog. And
yeah, it is funny though, but that I do find that Boston thing interesting because that is a Boston type of thing where they are like it's a city that can be pretty strict about drinking, about all. It's a very puritanical thing. It
right.
really, like, just like the old days, it's really like there's this thing, that there are still laws in place, and people kind of get terrified, like, because somebody will make a scene if you bring your dog in, even to get an ice cream or something. That there's this rule. But I noticed New York City is just really the opposite, which I love.
It's funny, the few guests I've had from New York, and I lived in New York for 20 years, my first
Uh,
question is like, what do they get into when they're on a walk? What do they put in their mouth?
yeah,
It's innocent stuff like chicken bones
yeah.
and stuff, but there's a lot more lewd
Yeah,
and
the rat.
crude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Reggie, my grand dog, just gets into everything. And that I warned my son about that. I'm like, ooh, you got to watch it. There could be some tricky things because he'll really go for the smell of any. He was like a real, like, street puppy. And that's what I was saying to him, like, ooh, it can go badly. And the signs to look for.
Yeah.
And then to get to a vet, right? We don't see that out here as much. Like I was saying, my grand dog and my dog, like, so these seemingly arch enemies, but it's really just the older mom correcting the puppy. But when they get out together and there's the world that it's them, versus the world, they're as a team. They're
Yeah.
really moving together, looking out. If one dog barks, the other one like stands right by him, makes himself big. I thought that was curious. Now,
Yeah.
what's your whole dog thing? Why are you a dog guy?
It's funny, I haven't had a dog until I was an adult, till 6 years ago. I always
Whoa.
consider myself a dog lover. And, like I said, I lived in New York City for 20 years. And in that
Yeah.
time, I was in an office 40, 60 hours a week. I just never thought it was feasible.
Yeah.
But once I got the opportunity to do it, it was, everything I imagined and wanted it to be. And,
Right.
all the cliches of unconditional love. And, I think about it a lot all the time. And I think, one of the things I was thinking about just the other day was it's the consistency of the dog's affection and just wherewithal. If you're in a personal relationship, you've got peaks and valleys with that relationship.
Yeah.
You don't have that with dogs. I mean, you have a
Right.
little bit of instability when they're a puppy, but once it's a couple years old and you find that groove, there's that
Hmm.
consistency of companionship, love, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So that's kind
Yeah.
of what I've concluded is
Yeah.
like
Right.
it's
I mean, it's like, and I think it truly, the science of it, right, is amazing. It's in our DNA. There are particular, genetic, thing that was really bonded with us for a reason.
yeah.
And I think, but not everybody has it. I mean, really, there are cat people. There are, which with my friends, I think it's really funny. The cat people, who I like cats actually too. I never really had them, but I will say I determined that there is a personality difference between the dog and cat person, which is pretty funny,
Now,
and
is Bill
definitely
a
don't.
cat person?
Yeah, Bill has cats. So it's curious. Bill has a cat and has had cats. One, there's a song called Larry, which references his cat Larry, which is off our third album, Let Me Come Over. I remember in those days, I used to like, so if he went somewhere with his wife, I had to go over and feed Larry. And Larry, yeah, was a cool cat. But the cats always like, I think, his wife, Laura, but not, the cats don't like, he's not a cat person. So he always has them. I don't think he would deny that he doesn't really bond. In fact, he said he's wanted a dog for a long time, but he's never got one.
Yeah. Well, I wind out every show with what I call the Zoomies, and that's 5 quick frivolous questions. The first question is, do you kiss your dogs on the mouth?
Like a lot, I think all of my dogs were not good around the face. I would, I'm sure I would, but so I would say no. And also curious, this dog is no touch the paws.
Ah, that's
You can touch her
interesting.
anywhere else. You go near the paw, no.
Yeah, my
Doesn't
dog's
bite
that
out.
like that way with the pads, because often I'll try to feel the pads to see if they're rough or not, and it's
Mhm.
always kind of pulling away.
Yeah.
Question 2 is, does your dog have a theme song? If it
Oh,
was
that's a good
walking the
question.
red carpet, or I know you're in a
Yeah,
baseball town, the walk up to the plate music, what would it
right.
be?
Cora, what would that be? She's sleeping solidly right now, as the 10-year-olds do. I'm gonna go with Green Onions.
Okay. I think I
Yeah.
might have had that before.
Booker T and the MGs, yeah. That's how
Yeah.
I see Cora's thing. But I also give her a voice, by the way, which is Marge Simpson would be her voice.
Ah, funny, funny. Well, that
Yeah.
was question number 4. So
Oh, okay.
we'll cover that. Question 3 was, if your dog toured, I know you haven't taken Cora
Yeah.
on the road, but what would she want on the tour rider?
Oh, she does come to concerts though. We saw John Doe recently at someone's backyard concert.
Oh, great.
Um, yeah, I brought her to John Doe acoustic concert. Yeah, she was naughty, so she tried to steal all the finger food. I think she's now, as she's older, she goes right for the good stuff. So as a pup, she'd eat anything, if anything fell on the ground. But Reggie, so we've only had Reggie like a year, but he's really naughty. We went out, left him alone, we came back, and he had gotten into the giant bag of dog food, knocked it over, and ate about 3/4 of it.
Oh my God.
This is a 30-pound dog. I'm going to say he ate 15 pounds of dog food. So I was like, oh no, like that's weird. And he was wobbling. He was looking like crazy. I'm like, well, we have to go to the vet. You got to go to the vet, kind of thing. I start Googling, but it all resolved pretty quickly. I said there's only a couple things that can happen here. We have a dog that's not breathing in a few minutes, or most likely, because I've had dogs, my whole life. Whenever they get in overboard, it just comes, they just get sick, which it did.
Yeah.
And then it was hungry, half hour later. Insane.
I
Oh my
only
God.
wish humans could be that way when they felt
Yeah.
ill, and then, like,
But this dog especially, is not food like that. She would eat a lot, but she wouldn't eat 15 pounds of food.
yeah. God, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the first part of question 4 was, do you use a dog voice? Do you speak to
Yes.
Cora in
Yeah.
are you in
That,
falsetto, or
It's a good
what's your
question.
voice?
I've thought about that a lot. I've been thinking about that lately because I have these funny discussions, and I gave my grand dog Reggie a voice too, which is kind of a southern thing because I think he was from the South, and I do imagine them talking to each other. But I often imagine that for whatever reason, Marge Simpson voice for my dog, and that she's the practical one about Reggie and my kids. And yeah, I think I do change the pitch of my voice pretty high. People have commented on that because I think that's how they respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, question 5, I always ask, is there a dog organization or a service that you'd like to give a
Oh
shout
yeah.
out to?
Yeah, in fact, we do. So I'm a booking agent. That's what I do for a living. I'm
Okay.
a music agent. I represent artists for 40 years. And we have a company called Concerted Efforts. And it's people like Roseanne Cash and Rhiannon Giddens, a lot of the rootsy kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing. So we have an office out in Western Mass, and one of our newest staff members, Isabel, works at a dog shelter, the Franklin County Regional Dog Shelter in Turner Falls, Massachusetts. And so we've been donating to them.
Awesome.
Yeah. For a while, it seemed like all my friends wanted a particular dog, but now everyone in my neighborhood has the mixes from the shelter.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good movement, right? And they're the best dogs.
They are. They're
Yeah,
very appreciative.
yeah, these pit bulls, which I'm always like worried about, they seem like the most well behaved.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's give a little love to Buffalo Tom. You guys have a new LP coming out called Jump Rope on May 31st.
Yeah.
What's in store for you for the rest of 2024?
Generally, when we release these albums, we go on little tours. So we go up to the Midwest, to Chicago, Omaha, then the West Coast, go up the coast and play concerts. And then in Europe, we've always toured Europe, big place for us. So we go to Europe in September, October for like 2 weeks. We all have kids, two kids who are in college or just out. So we're kind of more free now to tour a little bit. We're
Right.
not like tired, but we're almost there, which is a good feeling. And we played a lot of shows actually recently, which is insane when you think about it. It's the same guys since we were 18 years old. I mean,
Yeah, that's great.
a long time. Yeah, our kids are older than we were when we started.
That's great to see and hear because without naming names, you do see these acts out there with 6 or 7 members, and
Yeah,
there's really only one member from the original band, you know?
yeah. They're even in the indie rock kind of scene that we're from, that does exist. And yeah, it's pretty organic. I mean, it just happened to, even after college, we all moved to Boston, lived together. Then we've lived in the Boston area for all this time. Oh, by the way, Tom's a cat person, I have to say too. More that I think about it, our drummer.
Yep, yep. Well, best of luck with the new release. I'm always on the
Thanks.
lookout for my guests on the road to come to my neck of the woods. So hopefully,
Yeah.
someday soon.
We haven't been we usually play in Chapel Hill, but it's been a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
good luck with your dog. What is your dog's name?
Charlie.
Charlie, nice one.
Well, Chris, thanks again. I appreciate your time.
Okay.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Good questions.
Thanks.
Okay, see you later.
Take care.